Good morning, everybody, and happy Monday to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently this week. Last week was all about telling a story and a little talk about that. This week, though, I want to be a little bit more personal with you and share some stuff that I've been experiencing over the last year. I went dark about a year ago. I withdrew from social media. I stopped posting. I stopped podcasting. I stopped putting out my weekly newsletter. I stopped going after speaking gigs and opportunities to be a guest on podcast. I stopped promoting my book. I just stopped. I stopped cold turkey. And this week, I'm going to talk about why. In hopes that maybe there's something that I experienced over the last year that you can relate to. The first one that I want to talk about today, and to be honest, I'm not really looking forward to this week, but it's important to me that I share this for me. The first thing that I want to talk about this week is the harsh inner critic. What I continue to learn about myself is just how hard I am on myself. And the impact of having such high demands on yourself has real consequences that eventually catch up to you, I promise. Some of those consequences for me are still coming into focus, but others have made themselves known. I'm going to talk about some of that today. And something that I have starved myself of for most of my life have been acts of self-compassion. Just the idea of being compassionate toward myself, I have really starved myself of that. And my experience of starving myself of compassion means that nothing I ever do is good enough in my own eyes. Nothing. Nothing is good enough. I'm constantly falling short or failing. It means to me that everybody else has it all together. Everybody else is making progress. Everybody else is living their dream. And here I am struggling to keep up. It means that I don't celebrate the wins in my life, no matter how big or how small. It means that I'm not practicing gratitude for the good, but I spend a whole lot of time bitching about what's wrong or what's missing from my life. It is this constant drumbeat of harshness and of criticism. Where did this come from? I grew up in band, and in many ways, being in band absolutely saved my life. Band for me was like an island of misfit toys. There was always a sense of safety for me on that island, and it gave me a sense of belonging as a kid. So there was an enormous amount of good that I got out of being in band, an enormous amount of good. It literally saved my life. I loved band. I loved band so much that when I was a little kid, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. Knew is the wrong word. I thought that that's what I wanted to do, is I wanted to just be in band forever. I grew up in a small town, so I didn't know about a lot about a lot. I didn't know, the people that I saw growing up in my hometown. You were either like the doctor, or you were a teacher, or you worked, in the big town, Fort Smith, and you worked, in an office or in a factory somewhere. Like those were your options. And I thought, well, I want to be the band director. That's what I want to do. And so I went off to school and I got 2 degrees in music education, and it served its purpose for me. So band saved my life. It got me into a better situation in life. It gave me opportunities. But there's also a really dark side of being in band. Musical performance is subjective. Its worth is largely based on personal taste. And for many years, a big part of what I did as a musician in band it got criticized. Everybody gets criticized. It's just the nature of that field. You go to your lessons on your instrument, and your teacher tells you all the things that you're doing wrong. Criticize, criticize, criticize. And then, because that's what I thought I wanted to do for a living, I got training on how to be critical of other people, how to pick apart their performances. Now, keep in mind that for me, this is on top of growing up in a small town. And in a small town, for those of you that are in small towns or grew up in small towns, you know this. Appearances matter. It's a place where everybody knows you. they know your family, they know all of your business, and there is a sense of wanting to put forth your best face, especially when you're a kid, because you know that that face is going to be talked about and judged. And how do you know that? Because you and your family are doing it too. And this was just the culture of small town Arkansas. At least it was for me. And that kind of scrutiny of living your life under a microscope, a life where everything you do is subjective, where everything is subject to criticism and judgment, it's exhausting. It is exhausting. Those skills, if you can call it that, were finally developed in me from a young age. And guess where those skills get put to use more than anywhere else? That's right. They get turned inward. The self becomes the object of all that criticism and all that judgment, and it is absolutely exhausting. Living a life of self-scrutiny will wear you out. And I can tell you that about a year ago, I was exhausted. So making the decision to come here on this platform to confess to you part of what I was going through over the last year and why I went dark is a way of me embracing that part of me. Because that part of me, the perfectionist, the critic, the punisher, it's a real part of me. It's a part that actually exists. Now, do I like this part of me? Of course, this is the question I go to, right? Well, you start examining it and you're like, well, is this a part that I like? But that's a trick. That's a pitfall, because the default setting we have is to say, oh no, I don't like this part of me. I wish that it didn't exist. But that's just more criticism. That's just more criticism of it's exactly what we're trying to avoid. And yet when we examine this part of us, we immediately want to go to this default setting of doing more of that thing. To approach that part of me with more criticism, with a desire to forcefully remove this part of me, it just seems like more of the same from an old familiar playbook. And it's a playbook that has worn me out. And that's exactly what I've always done. Search and search and search for the parts that I don't like, and then beat the hell out of myself about it, and then try to beat that part of me out of myself through constant judgment and criticism. If I hate it enough, it's going to go away. Well, guess what? That shit ain't working. It's time to try something new. It's not working. So I'm trying something new. And I've been trying this for a bit. And I'm going to share with you what I'm trying. Now, instead of saying, I don't like this part of me, I'm choosing instead to just acknowledge that this part of me exists. It's a part of who I am. It's just what got created. It's what I've cultivated. It's what I've allowed to happen. It's who I've allowed myself to become. It exists. It's real. This is it. All right. So instead of rejecting it whole cloth and trying to beat it out of myself, I'm trying just to an act of self-compassion. Just acknowledge that it's there. And it's an act of self-compassion that literally, when I think about it, it just allows me to breathe a little bit easier. It just allows me to just take a breath and go, yeah, that's who I am. It's an act of compassion that also allows me to open up the space to explore that harsh inner critic, to get really curious about that inner critic instead of attacking it. So instead of just going at it, trying to beat the hell out of it, I'm getting curious about it and starting to ask some questions in a really self-compassionate sort of way. And it opens up the possibility for me to ask about how this harsh inner critic might be serving me or helping me, or at least trying to. And I know that sounds a little odd, but really get curious about that inner critic and say, what are you trying to do to help me? Why have I allowed you to exist when I'm painfully aware of your existence? What are you trying to do to help me? So I just think about it and I go, hey, hi, what exactly are you doing here? And what I have found and what I'm learning is that as I take a look and get curious, is that my harsh inner critic would never describe itself as the harsh inner critic. That's not how it would identify. It would instead call itself a finely honed inner protector. It's an inner protector that gets developed when we're really, really young. It gets developed to protect us from getting bullied, to protect us from getting made fun of, from getting left out, from disappointing somebody that we don't want to disappoint, to protect us from the neighbors making fun of us or talking about us. There are all sorts of ways that we discover that we need to protect ourselves as we grow up and beyond. And that protector, it creates this internal dialogue, or it creates a set of behaviors that are meant to protect us from all these things that we think are threats. And so when we stray from that narrow path of what we think is the ideal, of what we think is us being perfect, that no one's going to judge or make fun of or bully, when we start to veer away from that, when we start going outside those lanes, that's when that inner protector shows up, kicks in, and it says, no, 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 no. Don't do that. That thing is bad. Don't do that. And it just beats the hell out of you. And that inner protector, it's the voice of our fears. It's the voice that keeps us small. It keeps us from moving through the world in a way that our adult best selves would have us move through the world. It's a voice that keeps us moving through the world like we're still that scared little kid. It's a voice that keeps us from expressing who we really are, and out of fear that someone's going to reject who we really are. It's a voice that keeps us imprisoned by our past. And tragically, it's the voice of a misspent imagination. A voice that imagines what can go wrong rather than what's going to go right. It's a voice that imagines all the ways that your dreams couldn't possibly come true. It's a voice that keeps you from taking the risk that your gut tells you would pay off and be really good for you. And I think that the smarter you are and the older you get, the louder that voice of fear is going to sing. Most of the things that we are so worried about and so scared of are things that are far, far, far in the rearview mirrors of our lives. So much of what that voice is trying to protect you from isn't a threat anymore. So much of what that voice is trying to protect you from is just so far-fetched from reality. But that protector that I'm telling you about, for me, that protector protected me right into a form of paralyzation. So I had to come to grips with the fact that I have to form a different relationship with this inner protector. So instead of telling that voice to shut up and go away, which is what I would traditionally have done, what if instead I just listen to it? Just hear it. Hear what it has to say. And then my response is thank you. Thank you for protecting me. I hear your concerns. I understand the consequences that if things go wrong, this might happen. And that's a risk I'm willing to take anyway. One of the reasons that I went dark for the last year was because that inner critic for me, that inner protector, it got so loud for me. It just got too loud because I had done this work. I got to the point where I could not listen to my own voice. I would do a video, I would sit down to edit it, and I would hear my own voice, and I would think, my God, you sound too gay, or you sound too nasally, or too Southern, or you said that word with a really hard Southern accent, or some other nonsense. I couldn't sit there and look at my videos on camera without thinking, my God, look at your teeth. Look at how crooked your teeth are. Look at where you've been grinding your teeth. Oh my God, your hair, you need a haircut. You can't put this out with. You got to go get a haircut. My God, oh my God, look at that zit. This was what was going on. This was this constant drumbeat in my head. And by the way, as a side note, it does not help when other people call you or write you to remind you of these things. That doesn't help. But those other voices, the external voices, those voices, you also have to say thank you, but I'm going to do it anyway. My goals, my aspirations, my dreams, what I'm trying to do with my life are more important to me than your opinion. But thank you, or not thank you, whatever you choose. Because in reality, when they're doing that, when they're saying those things, that's their inner protector, haunting them, and it has nothing to do with you. You know why I get up early in the morning? I get up at 4:30, is what I've been doing. I've been getting up at 4:30. I spend about 90 minutes writing what ends up being about 10 minutes on here. And the reason that I do that is because I don't have all day to sit and think about how I'm going to look and how I'm going to sound and what I'm going to say. I get up, I write it, I do it, and I'm done. Baby steps. Is it how I'll always do it? Probably not. But it's a small act of self-compassion to just say, yeah, you haven't showered, you haven't shaved today, you're wearing a cap on camera, my God, what are you doing? But it's okay. It's okay. I am always amazed when I think about it, what we do to ourselves and what we do to one another as misguided ways of protecting ourselves, to shield ourselves from what might happen or what might go wrong or of what someone else might think of us. Think of all the opportunity cost of that misplaced fear. May we all free ourselves up from the fear of an overactive imagination. May we put those brilliant imaginations to better use. Use them dreaming up all the ways that we can live bigger lives with even greater ambitions. Ambitions that improve our lives and the lives of others. Ambitions that make a difference for ourselves, for the people we care about, for the world that we live in. Ambitions that allow us to use our lives up for good, making a difference with what we do. And may you have joy, peace, and happiness, good health and well-being, a life of ease and prosperity, the courage to get what you want from this life, the clarity to know what that is, the imagination to not sell yourself short, and the discipline to see it through. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great week, and I'll see you back tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.